According to Monday, July 21st, spoilers for The Bold and the Beautiful, Grace Buckingham's strategy will have a serious flaw. Here is what spectators may anticipate from John Finnegan, who will also play detective with amazing outcomes. Bill Spencer confirmed that Liam Spencer's tumor was completely removed after receiving the MRI results from Grace. As Friday's show came to an end, there were some moments of celebration, but Finn was obviously unable to get rid of the uneasy sensation. Finn is not going to let this go, judging by the thoughtful expression on his face. Naturally, Bill doesn't care about the specifics of Liam's surgery. He is just relieved that he will live. In contrast, Finn is a doctor who prefers to know everything, particularly in circumstances as bizarre as this one. Finn will play detective in Monday's B&B episode in an attempt to solve all of this. You can bet that Grace will end up on the hot seat because Bill stated that she and her colleague were in charge of the operation. Grace's plan has a serious issue because she ought to have done more to conceal her involvement in this. Bill undoubtedly would have done so out of gratitude if Grace had urged him to keep her name out of it. Grace might have gotten away with it if she had approached this situation differently. But because Grace was so eager to obtain Bill's $1 million, she became careless. Grace won't be able to respond appropriately to the questions that Finn will now pose. Bad news is on the horizon since Grace's agitation is sure to cause her to become agitated and generate even more suspicions. Finn might speak with Bridget Forrester once more to seek her opinion on this strange circumstance. In the end, Bridget and Finn might discover that Grace has pulled off the biggest fraud of all time. It appears that Grace set everything up to ultimately get Bill's money by fabricating a brain tumor for Liam. Grace will manage to get out of any debt problem she finds herself in, but if she loses her job and gets arrested, it might cost her more than she anticipated. According to teasers for The Bold and the Beautiful, Finn will demonstrate his tenacity in pursuing updates on the actual plot, so tune in. Monday, July 21st, spoilers for The Bold and the Beautiful point to a ton of surprises and turns. Now that he has no tumor, Liam Spencer will be thankful for another opportunity at life. John Finnegan appears to be dubious about this medical miracle in the meanwhile. That would spell disaster for Grace Buckingham, who appears to be about to commit another careless error in her covert plan. Let's discuss what will happen in the upcoming episode of the CBS soap opera, as you continue reading. Liam Spencer's miracle in medicine. First, let's talk about Liam's medical marvel. Although not immediately, Liam was informed that he had an incurable brain tumor. According to the physicians, Liam's collapse was caused by brain enlargement. There was no mention of tumors. Grace said that the neurologist just noticed the tumor during a follow-up MRI following the surgery. So, did Grace fabricate the story that Liam had a tumor? Or did they actually miss it the first time? Appreciation and second chances. Returning to Liam, he is ecstatic and overwhelmed by the news that his brain tumor has been totally gone. Everyone had been expecting Liam to die just a few days earlier. He would have finally died from the tumor if it hadn't been for the bullet. Accordingly, Liam will want to make sure he lives his second opportunity at life well. For Liam, that entails giving Kelly and Beth Spencer the best father he can. John Finnegan is doubting. According to Monday, July 21st teasers on The Bold and the Beautiful, Finn was dubious when Bill Spencer discussed the treatment. Finn requested success numbers in literature. Bill dismissed it though, as he had none of that. Just Grace's promise. If done the right way, Bill said, the process would be bogged down in red tape. Grace then informed Bill that the tumor had completely disappeared. Fans are aware that Grace recently received $1 million, therefore it is only natural for her to assert that Liam is doing better. Read this. Taylor Hayes presses Ridge to decide on a wedding date on The Bold and the Beautiful spoilers. Finn might try to challenge Grace and probably conducts his own investigation. Another error might occur when Grace falters or fails to provide him with the specifics. Finn will become even more suspicious as a result. Including Bridget Forrester in his probe would be typical of Finn. I wonder if the intimate collaboration between Finn and Bridget could result in passion. On Monday, July 21st, 2025, which narrative are you most excited to see? That night it rained non-stop, the type that battered rooftops and turned the city into silvery streams. With his hood pulled over his eyes, Finn stood at the edge of the pavement, gazing up at Grace's apartment's faintly illuminated windows. There was something wrong with it. For days it hadn't. And now that he had pieced together what had happened up until this point, Finn was very sure that Grace's plan had a fault. An enormous one. Grace had claimed that someone was after her when she appeared at Finn's bookstore 2 weeks prior. Right before it closed, her hair moist and her cheeks flushed. She had stammered as she took a crumpled picture out of her coat pocket, her fingers shaking. She had muttered, "I think they're watching me." The image featured a man in the background of other pictures she had taken in the downtown area. Always hazy, always in the shadows, never stops observing. Finn had initially taken her word for it. He did. There was something about Grace that was part certainty, half vulnerability. She told stories in a way that was almost addictive, and her terror was magnetic. However, something had felt strange this time. Too prepared, too well practiced. Additionally, there remained the key problem. On the floor of the store, close to the place where Grace had been standing, Finn discovered a tiny brass key the day after her visit. Dated and elaborate. Not something that can be lost easily. He attempted to contact her by phone, text, and an in-person visit, but she was disappeared. As simple as that. Perhaps it was just typical Grace, but there was something nagging at the back of his mind, piercing and persistent. Finn decided to play detective. The key was his first move. After a number of locksmiths, one eventually located it, to a box rather than a door. A vintage security lock from the Victorian era, usually found on private drawers or safes. Following the trail, Finn arrived at a collector's store in the Arts District. The older, trembling-handed proprietor knew Grace from a picture Finn displayed. He said, "She asked about those boxes when she came in. Cited a book she was writing as the reason. Do some research. However, she seemed apprehensive. I believe that she was fleeing something. If she had purchased anything," Finn inquired. The man gave a nod. "Not from me. However, she took another person with her. Tall dude. Even inside wore gloves. Gloves. During the summer." Finn took note of the information. The mystery surrounding Grace's disappearance had evolved into something more intricate by this point. With a tense bobby pin and more adrenaline than experience, he broke into her flat. Everything was excessively tidy inside. The books are neatly placed, the dishes are spotless, and the bed is undisturbed. He didn't recognize Grace. His familiar Grace left behind shreds of paper, scribbled songs, and half-drunk teacups on every surface. The laptop was gone. And her phone. However, Finn discovered something jammed under her closet's floorboard. A notepad with ripped pages and a single terrifying phrase scribbled repeatedly. "Don't believe what I tell you, Finn. That's all. 12 times over." He remembered that night in the bookshop now, standing in the rain outside her apartment. Her eyes, her words. Instead of being afraid, they had been strategic. And the weakness in her scheme? Finn was the one. Involving him had been a mistake on her part. Because it was being used if there was anything he detested. After waiting until 2 in the morning, Finn crept into the building and went up the stairs in the back to Grace's floor. Earlier in the day, he had obtained a spare key under false pretenses because he knew the landlord well. The air inside was frigid and stale. He went swiftly, scanning the walls with his flashlight. He looked beneath the sink, behind the couches, and behind the paintings. He discovered a brand new toothbrush in the restroom. It is still in its box. This was no longer where Grace lived. Then there was a squeak in the closet door. It had shifted. With his heart racing, Finn took a step closer and opened it once more. Nothing. Only a suitcase and coats. However, the rear wall yielded somewhat when he pressed against it. Empty. The bogus panel came off as he applied more force. There was a safe behind it. Little unmarked metal. The brass key was a great fit. Finn discovered a big envelope and a USB stick inside the safe. There was a stack of pictures of Finn in the envelope, collected from various locations throughout the city. Even on his morning coffee runs at his apartment and at the bookshop, he had been observed by someone, pursuing him. There were audio files on the USB. With his heart pounding in his ears, Finn connected it to his laptop and listened. Grace's voice was heard. She was writing in her diary. However, they were methodical rather than panicked or scared. Specific. She was recording talks, monitoring movements, and creating a psychological profile of a person. Of him. In one, she remarked, "I think he suspects something." However, I've managed to keep it in check. Being one step ahead is crucial. To convince him that there is an outside threat, that I'm being followed, he reacts emotionally. Facilitates steering him. While the recordings were playing, Finn sat motionless. One by one, she had played tricks on him and taken advantage of his worry. However, for what purpose? The final file included the solution. Grace spoke in a chilly tone. Clinical. I'll be gone by the time he discovers what I did. However, the fact that he had to figure it out is what matters. The test was that they required someone who could solve the puzzle and think creatively under duress. He also went on to pass, indicating that he is prepared. Finn wounded again. They. Who were they? That night he hardly slept at all. Simply sat quietly while looking through the pictures and continuously played the files. What was the test he'd passed? Why did it seem like the main game was just getting started? In the days that followed, Finn became aware of minor alterations in his surroundings. He received a different, less informal greeting from the man at the coffee shop. Every morning, the bus he rode began to arrive 5 minutes early. For hours, a man in a navy coat stood next to his bookshop, feigning to be on the phone. Later that week, he ran into him again outside his gym. He could see beneath the surface, as though the world had been tilted. It had everything been carefully chosen, manipulated. Yes, Grace had vanished, but not because she was scared. Since she had fulfilled her task. Before all of this began months ago, he recalled what she had told him. To find your way forward, sometimes you have to burn the map. He realized what she meant now. The collector's shop was deserted when he returned. Unoccupied. Not even the flooring were dusty. It had never been rented, according to the building manager. That name is not on the lease. There was never a listed antique store in the area. When Finn returned home, he looked through the pictures once more and noticed something new. One showed a hazy figure with a briefcase in the backdrop. The man Grace had said was stalking her. Finn did his best to improve the picture. There was a symbol on the briefcase. An eye in the middle of a triangle. The sign began to appear all around him. Near a subway exit, spray-painted. Inscribed in a library windows corner. Downtown, hidden inside a mural. He was now being guided rather than merely observed. The bookstore received a box one day. No address for return. There was a phone inside. Turned on already. A single message was shown. You're prepared. 11:47 p.m. The bridge. Finn regarded it for a while. He wanted to pretend that none of this ever happened and toss it into the closest sewer. But there was an electric rush of curiosity in another portion. The part that had always seemed too small for his own life. He arrived at the bridge at 11:47 p.m. The wind screamed. Darkness swirled in the river below. Beside him a black automobile drew up. Windows with tints. The rear door opened. Grace went outside. He didn't recall Grace though. The sharper version of her wore a fitted coat, had her hair pushed back, and had inscrutable eyes. Her words were straightforward. I told you not to trust me. I was set up by you. You were recruited by me. For what purpose? She gave a small smile. To see if you are able to break the cycle. You did. What loop? This world. This delusion. It was not intended for you to question it. However, you did. He was unable to comprehend. Not entirely. Nevertheless, he trailed her into the vehicle. 2 others sat quietly inside. Gloves were worn by both. As they drove, nobody talked. Beyond the cacophony, they left the city and entered an area where the stars seemed closer than the earth. At last, Grace turned to him at a far-off institution, tucked away in a pine forest. Finn, you're not who you believe yourself to be. So who am I? A variable. In front of him she set a file. There were pages that described events in his life. Everything was planned. Everyone watched. She remarked. You were more than just a bookseller. You were put there. Observed. Unknowingly trained. And we saw how you adjusted when we caused a disturbance, how you resolved it. Why? Since we're constructing something. Furthermore, only some brains can function outside of the script. Finn surveyed the space. The walls were lined with screens that displayed footage of cities, people, and motion. She remarked, you're not the first. However, you're among the select few who have reached this point. Finn let out a deep exhale. Now what? Now you have a choice, she added. A door slid open behind her. One route took him back to his former existence, which was small, prescribed, and safe. The other one? Not sure. Finn, however, made no hesitation. He got up, walked by her, and entered the door. And the world as he had known it started to shift.